Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Game On Radio. I'm your host, Rock Roberts, and with me is my nice and always friendly co-host, Wowfood.
Yo,
What you just witnessed right there was the official teaser trailer for the upcoming Sony press conference for PlayStation. Uh, that's slated to take place on Wednesday, February the 20th. Uh, Pretty much what this entire episode is, it's going to be about an hour 45 minutes long, or hour and 15 minutes long. It's pretty much about Sony and PlayStation. We're going to talk about the video here in a second, uh, kind of take another look back at it, verbally, anyways. Uh, we're also going to talk about what the announcement truly could mean, as there are a few possibilities. Um we're also going to talk about the history of the PlayStation, as well as some of the hit and misses throughout the years of each of the consoles that's came out. They've had numerous models and makes of the consoles come out over the years for each generation, and we're going to talk about the possible, if it is for the PS4 that's rumored and slated to come out later this year. What what could happen with it? Are we looking at something more powerful than the PS3, something more powerful than 360, something as powerful as the or more powerful as the Wii U, uh, and or is it rumored to be as powerful as the rumored new Xbox that's coming out, and talk about some possible launch titles that might be coming out with it as well. So let's get into it. Like I said at the start of the show, that was the official trailer for the press conference or press show or whatever you want to call it for Sony and its PlayStation division. Um, Not really much. I really like it. In fact, why can't we have an intro video like that? I don't understand. Uh, Mr. Stephen Gray, you need to get on that. You need to get back with me. We need to make that happen. Uh, but in all seriousness, the video is actually pretty cool. It's very, you're expecting something really big at the end of it when it's just an announcement for PlayStation.com, February 20th. Tune in. Um, what's your thoughts about it, Wafu?
uh, I'm honestly not too sure.
Do you think that the announcement could actually be about the PS4?
I'm hoping it will be, but there's been so many previous, things so far. They're going to be announcing PS4. Nope, it's a new game. They're announcing PS4. No, it's PlayStation Move. They're announcing PlayStation 4. No, it's PS Vita.
Right.
Yeah,
So
there's a good chance it's PS4 this time, but I'm not getting my hopes up.
there's been so many hits and misses, or actually more misses than anything else about the announcements when it comes to Sony and what they're going to announce. Everyone imagined last year at E3, Sony's going to announce at least give us something about the PS4. Nothing at all, um, which I think is a huge miss. Uh, I think if they're going to, if on the 20th is supposed to be the announcement for the PS4, I think they're too late, 2 years late on the hype train on announcing the PS4. I think they should have announced it 2 years ago and slowly put out information so we know, do we really want to invest the 400 plus dollars here in the US,
I, I,
which is what it's rumored to be.
I kind of agree with you slightly, but I disagree as well. Because, Sony have been bitten in the ass by the hype train before. I think that's part of the reason why they didn't do the whole announce it 2 years in advance. Because if you have the hype start too early, it builds up, and then it just collapses under its own weight, and nobody's ever happy with the finished product.
Right, right. Well, no one's really happy about the finished product anyways. There's always going to be those that look at it and say, I was expecting so much more. I was expecting this and this and this. Even though it was never announced that that was going to be included, people take the rumor mill too seriously. They think, oh, well, because it's a rumor, it has to come true. It has to be in it. I think that's part of the problem. And I think that's one of the reasons why it taken so long before they announce anything. That's the reason why things get so out of shape, so out of hand, so fast.
I still remember the early PlayStation 4 rumors of the 32 SPE cell processor, each core clocked at 4 gigahertz. And I was reading that going, what the hell?
Yeah, I remember some of the first reports on the new Xbox and new PS4 was that it was going to be cloud gaming only. Um, it was all download, or if it wasn't download, the way that they had it set up was you couldn't play pre-owned titles, is what it was slated to be, and I think that was a huge, huge miss. Um,
Yeah, on that, I don't think they're going to be blocking pre-owned games at all anyway. That's just a stupid thing. But
right,
I can see them doing something along the lines of you have to have an activation code, like with PC games. So you buy the game brand new, it comes with the activation code you put in, activate your game, and a lot of games have started doing this already on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox anyway, where you buy the game and you're missing a chunk of it, or you can't play it online until you bought this £5, £10, or $5, $10 access pass.
right. I'm trying. I think the access pass for WWE 13, if you did not buy the game, I think it was like $11 this year. If you didn't buy
Hmm.
it new, it was like 11 US
Yeah,
dollars.
I can see them keeping on doing that, but I can't see them blocking pre-owned games completely.
Right, right. Uh, and I think that's a huge downfall. Uh, Mainly because, and I think Microsoft has come out and said, no, we're not going to do that, regardless of what the rumors are speculating. They never came out and said, no, the new Xbox isn't going to do that. They just announced that they'll never take that route. And I believe that's a good idea because Microsoft realizes what it wants to be is a family. It wants the Xbox to be a family console. They want an Xbox kind of like they want a Windows is in every household, and they want two or three Xboxes in the household, one for every room, because they're wanting the 360 to be a media center, an entertainment media center. So in order to get the full advantage of that, you really need an Xbox in every room,
Mm.
which means people like myself, I have two Xboxes. I have the new Slim and I have the original Pro edition that came out back in 2005, 2006. And it just, I share games with my kids. Why would I need to buy two copies of the same game for one household? That's a ridiculous market strategy. And that would turn a lot of gamers, especially casual family gamers, away from any sort of console whatsoever.
See, I think that's the difference between the Sony strategy and the Microsoft strategy. Microsoft's idea is to have, a console in every room of the house, whereas Sony's has always seemed to be we want to be the center of the living room.
Right,
You know, Microsoft is we want to be everywhere. Sony is we want to be in the living room,
right,
and
uh,
they only need the one game and the one console per house.
right. And like you said before, this announcement could be anything. It could be, it could be a new title. It could be, it could be a huge thing for the new God of War title that's coming out. Uh,
I
it
mean, a
could
while ago, Sony bought out one of the cloud gaming services. It could be they're announcing,
cloud
you know,
gaming.
cloud gaming. Yeah,
Uh, or they could be like what Microsoft has done, which I think was a brilliant move. Instead of competing with the mobile gaming marketplace that Nintendo and Sony kind of has done, Sony has went out and even made its own gaming phone. Uh, Microsoft has embraced it. They know, all right, this is where it's going. It's heading this direction. We're just going to bring it all together with their smart glass and with Windows 8, which is what I'm running right now. At first I didn't like Windows 8. When I played around with it at the store, I got home. They said, "Hey, upgrade for $15." I'm like, I'm not going to pass up a $15 upgrade. And I actually like it. I like the Metro style look for the start menu.
in
Um,
that case, you're crazy.
well,
I,
it's
I like Windows 8 on a tablet. It's fine.
right,
A
right.
PC or a laptop, I cannot stand it.
Right, it's Windows 8 is meant for touchscreen. If you have a touchscreen, it's brilliant for it. If you don't, it's it's kind of hard to work around. But I do like when I press my little start menu, like I just did, all my information that I need pops up. My email, uh, any messaging I have, games I'm playing. The only thing I don't like about it though is the fact that it's all apps. They've
Mm.
pretty much gotten away from the programming aspect of it. Uh, like if I don't have a shortcut desktop icon, I can't find the program. I have to like dig through tons and tons of stuff to find the program that I want to open.
Yeah, I think the problem for me is where I try to use the computer for programming or making small website bits. That normally means having 4 or 5 windows open at the same time. And Windows 8 makes that far more difficult than it does
Right,
having just a normal app interface.
right. I would like to have, I think the apps is cool with it, but I think you know, if I go to my desktop, I would like to have my desktop to be the classic Windows XP 7 Vista, what we remember the desktop being.
Yeah,
I think that right there would be an awesome, ordeal with it. Uh, but back to Sony, you know, they could be announcing, hey, we're gonna release a whole new application to where we're migrating a lot of the iPhone, the iOS and the Android system into the PlayStation. You know, or a new bigger update that's going to allow us to do a lot more entertainment thing because Sony's come out and said that they understand one of the biggest drawbacks from the PS3 is that the entertainment value of it. There's not really much of entertainment wise for the PS3. It's strictly gaming, which is what we want to be set on, but we understand that we're missing a huge chunk of market out there by not pleasing the entertainment industry part of the
yeah.
crowd.
I
So
mean,
that
it could even be a developer announcement of like a while ago when they launched the PlayStation Vita. They mentioned the PlayStation Suite where you could make the mobile games and possibly Vita games.
right.
It could be an announcement that they've made it work with PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. Make your own indie games, launch from anywhere.
Right. Oh, and that's another thing we could say. Like I was talking about with the new update and whatnot, we could see a new update to the PlayStation Store, which is something. I mean, they updated it not too long ago, with the new interface and whatnot. I don't like it. I don't like the new PlayStation Store interface. I liked how it was prior to it,
Yeah,
uh, but we could see a arcade style section added onto it, like how Microsoft and the Xbox has it. They have you have your full you know games from big time developers like EA, Activision, Take Two, Rockstar. You have that section. You have your arcade section, which is all these cool arcade games like Minecraft, uh, Pac-Man, Street Fighter 2, classic arcade titles. Then you have your indie section, which is all your indie games like your Avatar Legends, Avatar Adventures, stuff of that nature that indie developers make. And then you have your add-ons section. That's pretty much your DLC packs. And I like how that's set up. If you know what you're looking for, boom, it's right there. And we could see something like that being announced, on the 20th. It could be a number of numerous things. Uh, but I think the main push, if Wall Street is right, which I believe and even Forbes, they've even both announced that that's what the 20th is going to be, is the PS4 announcement. It's a big thing, which I think if you're going to announce it this year, and if you've already, in my opinion, in my view, you've already missed the hype train from a year to 2 years back. Announcing it this early before E3 is a smart move because you throw it out there like, hey, this is what we're coming out with later this year, or this is what we're making, and then come E3, you could bust out, well, this is what you can expect, and
so
then
you
late,
mean kind of a we're answering all the rumors. This is the hardware we're producing.
right,
then E3 could be entirely on the games.
Exactly, exactly. Games and more software or more hardware approach. Like, all right, this is what, or we could see the new controller that everyone's been talking about as far as, well, we've seen what have been rumored screenshots of the new controller with the interface or with the touchscreen interface to it, the blue bar that's on top of it. That's which I'll add a picture to the video uh, right now. Um, as you can tell, there's quite a few things going on with it. Let me, you know, I'm looking at it right now. You're looking at a nice, it looks kind of bulky to me a little bit, but with everything that's supposed to have with it.
Well, I think that's because it's just the prototype. I mean, the
Right,
prototypes are always, clumsier, bulkier.
right. You
Well,
remember, yeah, you remember the PS3 prototype for their controller, the boomerang thing.
I love the boomerang.
I thought it was all right.
I've,
So
I've got a controller hidden in the drawer, broken somewhere. It was the third party controller the boomerang was based off of.
yeah,
It is amazingly comfortable to hold on to.
it just looks awkward and weird. I don't like it. I don't like the look of it. I can't see myself holding it in my hand and playing with it and being felt like I'm a gamer. Um,
It looked weird, but it was one of the most comfortable controllers I've actually used.
well, according to this picture I'm looking at right now, it looks like, of course, this is a prototype. Um, your touch screen is right above your analog sticks, your joysticks. You have your your home button, I guess, uh, centered right between your analog sticks with a small little speaker, which is what it's rumored to have in it is a speaker. Um, let's see here. What else? The analog sticks, of course, it has that lip to it, kind of like the 360s. They have that that dip in theirs, uh, which I've heard a lot of people they're excited about. The D-pad looks like it's been remade. Um, the bumper slash trigger things are the same. There's a small little button up here in the corner of the D-pad, right beside the supposedly touchscreen area. That could be the rumored share button that's supposed to be on the controller, where you press a button and it shares it to all the media, all the social media out there, and it saves it to saves pictures and whatnot to your hard drive, which I think is a cool concept. I would like to see something where if I'm doing something in game and if I want a quick snapshot of it, boom, I could do it right then and there just by pressing a button, and it saves it to my hard drive, and then I can upload it later, copy it to a USB, and put it on my laptop, whatnot. Or it could be the start select button. Who knows? But this is just a rumored prototype. Of course, you have your blue bar up top, which many people believe that is going to have something to do with the PlayStation Move. So, um,
Yeah, that's actually another thing I'm looking forward to. One of the rumors of PlayStation 4, which is pretty much a guarantee, really, is a new version of the PlayStation Eye.
right. The PlayStation I remember when it came out for the PS2. I I personally never owned it. My mother got it from my sister and got her like some games with it. It looked pretty cool. It really did. But I just saw it as a gimmick, and I didn't really see it going anywhere. And it really didn't, and it still hasn't really went anywhere. I don't think people bought into the PlayStation Move gimmick as much as Sony wanted them to. Uh,
No,
it
I mean
just
I think part of that as well was because it was optional.
right,
You had the PlayStation controller normally. You could keep on using the normal controller, or you could optionally use the Move controller. In
correct.
that situation, why should you spend an extra £50 for an optional controller which may be crap? May be rubbish.
Right.
You could have the normal controller. Connect, on the other hand, which was a relative success, wasn't a you could use a normal controller. It's to play these games, you have to have Connect.
Right. Even though I want to say, most of the fanfare when it comes to the Kinect games have been mainly negative. I know I did, a couple years back, I started doing reviews on the Kinect games because we had just got the Kinect, and there was really only one. There was only like a couple games that I really enjoyed playing the Kinect with, and that was, of course, the launch title with it, the Kinect Adventures. That was actually a pretty cool game. Now getting the Kinect started up and set up and calibrated, that was a hassle. It was a pain, uh, especially if you didn't have the room in to
Yeah,
do it.
that's the big flaw of launching it in the UK, because in the UK we don't have the joy America has of massive rooms. You know, my bedroom, I don't have enough room to set up Connect at all. Our living room, I barely have enough room to set up Connect if I get one, and if I do, I'll be kicking the sofa every time I use any of the games. It doesn't work in the UK or many places in Japan, considering Japan has a lot of very small spaces.
Correct.
You always see the adverts where it shows the living room of the size of my house basically in the living room.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I mean, you can buy like a third party accessory to zoom the Kinect so where the space required isn't as large.
But at the same
So
time, why is that a third party accessory? Why is that not
exactly,
functionality?
exactly. Uh,
I mean, one thing I do find hilarious at Eurogamer last year in October, I got to play Fable Journeys. Is it
yeah,
the new Fable Connect game? That was
which
so
got
terrible.
yeah, it got negative reviews across every every member of the board.
The
Anybody
good
that
thing was it was one of the developer people who was doing the demos and asking people what they thought of it afterwards, and I said, like, "Do you really want my honest opinion?" So yeah, so it was terrible, and he pretty much nodded in agreement as he tried to think of a way to say it could be worse.
yeah,
Apparently, they'd improved it a lot, just ready for Eurogamer. And it's worrying when the developers are there agreeing that it's terrible.
right, right.
They're the ones making it.
Um, I think the head of Lionhead Studios came out and even admitted, "Hey, this game it was released too soon. We set it up, beta. We sent out the prototypes way too soon for it. We uh, we started showing it at the game shows way too soon. Uh, so I'm hoping that Sony don't have the same, bad experience with the PlayStation, with the new PlayStation Move, if they do come out with one. Uh, I'm hoping it is ready for development when or it's not ready for development. It's almost close to for public use when they show it off.
Well,
Uh,
Sony recently have actually been, with the whole restructuring, ramping up their focus on camera parts. The light sensors, all of that stuff, even their 3D capabilities. And I honestly think that the next, the PlayStation 4's version of the iToy will be a 3D camera, which would work much better with Move. That basically be Connect plus Move better.
yeah. Um, the one thing that I do like about the Move is the fact that y- it's not just focused on your movement on your body. As far as if your left hand goes this way, if it's just looking for your left hand. Like it does with the Connect. With the Connect, it's just you. You are the controller. You are everything. Uh, which I find it very hard to do certain stuff with. Like if you're shooting a gun, or if you're shooting a weapon, uh, on a Kinect-based game, which I don't know if there are any. How does it really know that you're firing this weapon besides doing some awkward movement to show that
Well,
that's what you're doing?
that's the problem with Fable. To fire your weapon or your magic, you had to pull your hand up behind your shoulder and act as though you're throwing a javelin. And unless you got the motion perfect, it would not register it. If your hand went to the left, even a fraction of a millimeter, the bolt you're firing would fly off to the left-hand side of the screen or to the right-hand side of the screen. And it was insanely hard to just aim correctly, even though you only had 3 points you could aim at.
Um, Whereas with the Eye or with the PlayStation Move, you have that controller thing. You have the wand,
Mm.
and that's what it's looking for. It's looking for the wand. It's not looking for the body itself. It's looking for different points, and I think that's a great concept. Um,
I think the only problem I have with the wands is the size of those glowing balls.
yeah,
I do wish they were smaller.
yeah, yeah. Um, I kind of do wish that the wand itself was smaller. It does look kind of awkward and tacky, especially if you're playing it. You don't want to be playing it like in the mall or somewhere and have people, because they'll be laughing at you. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think the entire concept is a ridiculous concept. Just give me a controller. That's what it is. Gaming needs a controller. Just give me a controller, an arcade stick, something. Don't just make me be the controller. There are good things about it, like with the Kinect. Even with the Wii Fit. There's games out there that actually utilizes that accessory the way that it needs to be used. The Biggest Loser Ultimate Workout for the Kinect, I played. I got my butt handed to me playing that game. It was an excellent game. I loved it. In fact, I've thought about time and time again to going back out and get me another Kinect just so I can get that game, so I can tone up my body a little bit more. The game was an awesome game, and it really used the Kinect to its full capabilities.
You know, when the Wii Fit came out, I bought it because it seemed like fun, and it is fun, but it wasn't really exercise, if you know what I mean.
Right,
It got some people who didn't do anything to do a small amount, but it still wasn't much. But I
right.
think that one game sparked a whole generation of much better exercise games. I mean, if I had the space for it, which I don't, unfortunately, anywhere, I would love to get that UFC fitness game.
That looks like an awesome game. That was another game I was looking at possibly getting for for the Kinect. Was the UFC game? It was an excellent game, I thought. I
Mm.
didn't get a chance to test it out, but it looked promising. Um, and what I would like to see, I think that's what the Kinect needs to be for. Uh, the Star Wars Kinect game, it had some promise to it, but I heard it fell flat. By the time it was released, I didn't have my Kinect anymore. I was really looking forward to it, but I heard it got negative reviews. So
Yeah,
I can see it being a lot better on the PlayStation Move because you do have that wand, you do have that
yeah,
stick in your hand.
definitely.
So your lightsaber battles would be a lot more epic, um, and you could have what I would like to see is, well, I guess like something for the other hand, kind of like a glove or something for the other hand, not like the Power Glove by no means from the Nintendo days. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I actually do. I liked the idea of the Power Glove, but it was way before its time.
right.
I think now they can do it much easier. Perhaps just a wristwatch or something. Put it on your wrists, track where your where your wrists are.
Right. So that was that's some of the stuff that could be announced on the 20th. And while we were talking about the Power Glove and stuff in the past, let's actually and Nintendo. If you didn't know, Sony and Nintendo actually had a partnership at one point in time. Um, in fact, the PlayStation wasn't supposed to. The PS1, the PlayStation actually wasn't supposed to be for Sony. It was supposed to be a Sony-made add-on for the Super NES.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think the idea was it was uh, around the time Sega launched the Sega CD. Nintendo wanted to match that and release their own CD attachment, but they hadn't even looked at CD yet, so they looked at an outside company to make it for them, which is how they came to Sony, who'd basically been pioneering CD hardware.
right. Um, if you're not really familiar on the entire ordeal, we're going to give you a brief history of the origins of what happened. Um, the original PlayStation actually dates back to 1988, when it was a joint project between Nintendo and Sony for a CD-ROM add-on for the Super NES. Like Wowfood stated, it was Nintendo's way to keep up with Sega. Uh, if you look at the specs between the Super NES and the Genesis, mainly there really wasn't, Genesis really didn't have that big of a deal or that big of a lead over Super NES. In fact, they only had one thing. It was a faster system. I think a faster process system or something of that nature. And that was the only thing that it had going for it. Everything else was on a lower end, spec-wise, as it was to the Super NES. So it released the Sega CD, the 32X, and whatnot like that. Well, to expand and that was mainly to also expand the life of the Genesis. Well, to keep up with it, Nintendo looked towards an outside source for a CD-ROM add-on, just like Sega did, and they came across Sony. Now, Sony they had actually had a partnership with Nintendo. Sony, if I'm not mistaken, was actually making the sound chips for the Super NES at the time. I think the contract stated for the sound chips was that they just was able to be used inside the console. That was it. They got some sort of royalty fee for every console sold. That was about it. Now, when they was doing the contract for the CD-ROM add-on, Sony had in there that they wanted rights to any character that was added, that was used on a game for the CD-ROM add-on. And Nintendo didn't like it, so they pretty much chucked the contract out, said, no, we're going to go with someone else, and they went with Philips. This happened about 91. In 91, of course, the PlayStation did make its debut for the built-in CD-ROM. But of course, like I said, the fallout between the two companies, Sony and Nintendo, kind of forced Nintendo to go with Philips, which all the games that came out for it, I believe, was just horrible. I've never played any of them. I've saw plenty of videos. Did you ever play any?
I did not play any. I mean, looking at it from what I read somewhere else, after Nintendo dumped Sony, they didn't really have much interest in releasing the CD by then. They'd already started plans on the N64. I think they just gave a contract to Philips as a kind of a screw you to Sony, almost.
Right.
Aside from the right to use the characters, which is one of the reasons why they'd broken off the contract, they just left Philips to do what they could with it, and we all saw where that went. It was just horrid.
The funny thing about it all, I remember going deeper into the history of it and in the contract and everything between, the love triangle, if you would, between Sony, Nintendo, and Philips when it came to the CD-ROM add-on. The contract that Philips signed with Nintendo was exactly the same contract that Sony had with Nintendo. The exact same contract, pretty much. Except they was only allowed to use Link and or Link/Zelda, and that entire the Zelda franchise. They was allowed to use that franchise for some of the games, and Mario for some of the games. That was the only things that they was allowed to collect royalties on when it came to these games, and be licensed and have rights to use these characters. Just for their CD-ROM add-on to the Nintendo, which was pretty much the same agreement that Sony had. I think what it just came down to it, and Nintendo didn't want to pay out the money to Sony that was going to have to be made. They wanted to keep more of the money, which was going to be made with the product.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it came down to. Now, but that didn't, just because Nintendo and Sony broke off, obviously something happened. In 94, The first PlayStation was released.
If I remember rightly about that, the story behind it goes, Ken Kataragi, or however it's pronounced, was in a meeting with Sony, and with the head honchos of Sony, and he brought up the idea of making a games console. And when the managers basically turned it down, his response was along the lines of, "Do you really want Nintendo to disrespect us like this?" And instantly they just pushed forward the idea. I mean, in the idea of US or UK, that idea is laughable, but in Japan back then, and even still now, the idea of respect is still a very, very important to them.
Correct.
And, probably is kind of insulting very insulting to Sony to go, "We don't want these contract terms. We're cancelling now that you've done all the work and not paying you anything. Hey, Philips, here, have Sony's contract. And all the technology we've got off them so far."
Right. And, I mean, I think it was a huge slap in the face. It really was. And especially, just to ditch the contract altogether, just to ditch the partnership altogether, was one slap in the face. But then to pretty much offer the same agreement to Philips and actually go through with it was a even worse slap in the face. So
it was basically along the lines of, they had finished the hardware pretty much, and then Nintendo just went, "Thanks for doing all the work. We'll take this. We're cancelling the contract. You get nothing. Philips, here, have this. Finish it. Launch it."
Right. Which, if I'm not mistaken, Philips actually had a prototype that they was working on. And pretty much what it was is they just didn't want to launch it by themselves. They was looking for someone to launch it for them. And then with the thing that fell out with Nintendo and Sony, they said, "Hey, we will take less money if you launch this." And of course, Nintendo had the specs already from Sony on that console. They just gave it to them and said, "Here, this is what they was working on. Can you implement this into your system?" "Yeah." "How much time do you need?" "Give us 9 months to a year." "Okay, let's do this." And there, boom, 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 there you go. And then, of course, in December '94, the original PlayStation was released. It was part of the 5th generation of video game consoles at the time. It was competing against Sega Saturn and Nintendo 64, which the N64 was huge. I mean, the N64 was, and still debatable today, one of the best consoles ever made. It did had a lot of crap that came with it.
Like controller.
Yeah, the controller was very awkward because the way that it was built, you didn't know what style of gameplay was going to be used on it. So it was very awkwardly built. But it was a very good system, nevertheless. Well, the PlayStation came out, and in '94, it actually had a updated console release, a new design come out, and it was labeled as the PS1. I call the original PlayStation the PSX, and I call the PS1 the PS1. It's a smaller, condensed version of the PlayStation, of the first generation PlayStation. A little bit faster. It actually had its own little 5-inch screen, LCD screen, like 5 or 7-inch LCD screen as an add-on to it, which was pretty cool. It had its own little speakers. Pretty much it made it a portable system. As long as you had an AC outlet, or even a car outlet, boom, you're good to go. No problem. And that came out in 2000. And then 15 months after the Sega released its Dreamcast, Sony released the PS2 in 2000. A year before the Nintendo released its GameCube and Microsoft released its Xbox. Now the big thing with the PS2 was the hardware was a huge leap. They took a huge gamble on the hardware, especially with the DVD drive. At the time, DVDs really hadn't picked up that much steam yet. It was still something that, if you had the money to buy a DVD player, fine, good, great. If you didn't, you're sticking with VHSs. Not everyone had gotten on board with the DVD player or the DVD concept at the time. Sony
Yeah.
took Sony took a big risk and they went with the DVD. And Sega should have done the same thing, but Sega stayed with the CD-ROM.
Well, they didn't even stay with that. They went for the micro CDs, didn't they?
No, no,
Which,
Nintendo did.
yeah, Nintendo did. Sorry.
Yeah, Sega went with the regular CDs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Even though the Dreamcast is by far a great console compared to other consoles, um, the Dreamcast, I believe, was just too advanced for its time.
It wasn't just that. Apparently, I did speak to a few developers a while ago. That where was it? It was another one of the Eurogamer conferences actually, and talking to them, they actually somebody asked them about the PlayStation 3 because they'd heard the PlayStation 3 was insanely hard to program for. And the guy's response was along the lines of, yes, the PS3 is much harder to program for than the previous generation, but it's still a heck of a lot easier than the Dreamcast was.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of reasons why the Dreamcast failed. One, the programming was extremely hard to do for the developers. They didn't have a lot of third-party support.
No.
Especially EA. EA wouldn't release anything on there.
They also seem to fail miserably at marketing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. A friend of mine came to me one day and said, "Hey, I just got a Dreamcast. What's that?" "It's the new Sega console." "They released another console?"
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I remember the Dreamcast. The big thing I remember about the Dreamcast was a bunch of people, a bunch of guys sitting around a TV playing NFL 2K. And I remember someone busting out, one of the characters busting out of the screen and said, "You're gonna let the computer disk you like this," and da da da. And their big selling point was the Dreamcast is thinking. The AI was more advanced for for games on the Dreamcast. If you're playing football and you run the same play every third down, the Dreamcast picks up on it, and it makes the game change its gameplay to what you're doing. So, but the PS2 came out, in 2000. It was very, very successful.
I think again that's because at that point they had the perfect amount of hype.
Right,
They,
right. In fact, which I had listed beforehand, just last month or a month before, they had just stopped making PlayStation 2s.
mm,
So from 2000 to 2012, that's 12 years, 12 or 13 years of life for a game console. That's unheard of. Of course, there wasn't making video games for it. They stopped within the last 3 or 4 years of making games for that console, but still, that a company would still support a console for that long was unheard of. Now, you had the Slimline that came out in 2004, which was a slimmer model. I'm briefly going to touch on this, which I'm briefly going to touch on with the hit and misses with the PS2, or I'm actually going to touch on right now. But the Slimline it was smaller, it was more compact, it didn't take up as much room, and it looked sleeker. I liked all those features. One of the things I didn't like about the features was the fact that you had to search for the buttons. I remember when I first got it, trying to, I had it in my entertainment center, trying to find the power button was almost, and the reset button was almost impossible. It was really ridiculous because it was kind of touch, but it was like, all right, where do I touch at? It blended in so well with the console. It was kind of a hit, kind of miss for me. Also, with the original, as people call it, the fat body, the fat PS2, you had the hard drive that was a accessory to it that was needed to play certain games, such as Final Fantasy XI. Over here in the U.S., there was a few games that Wowfood had mentioned to me before the start of the show that Japan released that utilized the hard drive for the PS2 that was an add-on. The Slimline did not have any sort of add-on to it at all. It didn't have nothing to it. You couldn't add a hard drive onto it. It didn't have its own built-in hard drive. The only thing that it had built in was its own Ethernet port. You didn't have to buy the hard, which is something that the old PS2s you had to buy. You had to buy the hard drive, and then you had to buy the Ethernet port add-on to play online. The Slimline already had the Ethernet port already add-on to it. So that was a big miss for me when it came to the PlayStation 2.
I mean, I'm actually looking through the games which were released on the PS2 which made use of the hard disk drive now. And it's basically Final Fantasy XI and a lot of games, sports games, effectively, which were only popular in the US. NHL, MLB. I haven't even seen an MLB game in the UK or EU. These are games which are US only, basically.
Right.
You'd never see a single game in the UK with hard drive support. Looking at the Japanese releases, there's Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Unlimited Saga. Huh. Didn't realise that would be there. Let's see, Star Ocean, Street Fighter, Gundam, Ace Combat. Wow, that's a lot of games. That is a hell of a lot of games.
Which, kind of sucks because we didn't really see any of those releases over here. And mainly one of the reasons why those the games that was released, the sports titles was released to have the add-on capable with it was mainly probably because you needed the add-on to play online on the original PlayStation 2.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, most of these games just used the hard drive for slightly faster loading times. It really wasn't utilised in the US at all.
No. In fact, I remember one of the disclaimers for it was, this is not a save and storage space. You still need memory cards. So it was mainly just to download, like on Final Fantasy XI, what it did was it downloaded the game data. And it had it stored there, so when you got to that part of the game, it had somewhere to upload it besides it uploading it offline. That was all it was for.
Yeah.
So, well, like I said before, they just recently stopped making the PS2. So now we move on to the PS3. PS3 was released November 11, 2006, which is what we all pretty much know today. It was released a year later just about a year later than the 360. The thing with the PS3 that a lot of people didn't know about was the controller with it. When it first released, it had the 6-axis controller, which was, if you didn't know, if you tilted the controller, it gave you that little bit of an edge. Like if you're in a racing game, I know I've caught myself doing it. Kids do it all the time. When you're driving, you're making a turn, you're tilting the controller towards that turn, hoping it gives you a little bit more, and it actually did. It gave you a little bit more of an edge. The PS3 came with numerous console releases, such as a 20 gig hard drive, 40 gig hard drive, 60 gig hard drive, 80 gig hard drive, 120 gig hard drive, 160 gig hard drive, 250 gig hard drive, and a 320 gig hard drive. Now, some of those are with the newer generation. Some of them with the original generation. One of the big things about the two different types of generations, the PS3 Fat and the PS3 Slim, was the PS3 Fat, depending on which one you got, was backwards compatible for PS2 games. They're both backwards compatible for PS1 games, but only the PS2 Fat, the original release, if it has the 4 USB ports, was backwards compatible for the PS2.
I'd like to point out now that I still have my original PlayStation 3. I can still play my old PS2 and PS1 games on it.
You want a freaking cookie? because I have the
Yes.
new I have the new PS3, so I can't play the original PS2 games, which it's not something to do with the hardware. A lot of people, or some people, get that confused. Oh, it's because of the hardware. No, it's not because of the hardware. It's because of a software in the system. It's an emulator that they've taken out with that model. Um, they didn't. I believe it was never told the reason why that they took it out, but it's widespread belief that because they were still making the PS2 consoles. Why would you want to buy a PS2 console when you can buy a PS3 that plays PS2 games?
Hmm.
That was the widespread belief on why they took it out of the newer PS3s, why they never included it in, which is a big miss for me. But I do believe now, since they've stopped production of the PS2, we might actually see it in the PS3. But I believe it might be a little bit too late for that. We'll get to that here in shortly. Um, 2009, we saw the re-release of the PS3 in the slimline model, uh, which is what a lot of people have, I believe, now. Uh, it's 33% smaller, 36% lighter, and it consumes 34 to 45% less power. Uh, so it's pretty cool. It's smaller, sleeker, lighter.
Just going back to the PS2 emulation thing. Apparently, with the original PlayStation, they did have the old graphics synthesizer GPU, which was the PS2's graphics chip. So on the original launch console, it did have the hardware emulation.
Hmm.
But after the first lot of consoles, they removed that with the reasoning that it was to cut back price. I don't honestly believe that, considering the PlayStation 2 for the whole console was peanuts at the time.
Right, right.
But since then, it's been software emulation, and it's just kind of. I don't think they've been keeping on top of it, really.
Yeah.
I think that's the only reason why it's gotten gradually worse.
The Xbox, the 360, it had, when it first came out, you could still play PS2. You could still play original Xbox games on the 360. Just the list doesn't have every game in the library that you can play. The big titles, your Halos, um, your Halos, your platinum hits, stuff of that nature. Yeah, you're going to be able to play. As far as hidden gems, that's a big hit and miss. You don't know if you'll be able to or not. Uh, Now, January of this year, there were sparks, or not January, I'm sorry. Last year, Sony revealed a new super slim PS3. It was a new, completely redesigned case. It had a sliding door cover to the disk drive, which has been moved to the top of the console, kind of like how the PS2 Slim was. Uh, it's almost 3 pounds lighter than the Slim model that we have now, and it comes with either a 250 gig or a 500 gig hard drive. There's been several bundles with the Super Slim PS3 and a selection of games that come available with it. And I want to point out now, the games that come with the Super Slim PS3 bundles, don't get your hopes up for them. They're cool games. I actually have them. But if you have a PlayStation Plus subscription, you get those games free, as it is. And in order to really play those games, you have to have PlayStation Plus. What it does is the bundle comes with a year worth of PlayStation Plus, if I'm not mistaken. 3 months, 6 months, or a year, one of the three, of PlayStation Plus. And those 3 games are free to PlayStation Plus subscribers. Just throwing that out there. So, the future of it, January 2013, rumors were sparked due to comments from Sony CEO and VPs about a 2013 E3 announcement of the 8th generation video game console, which is pretty much PS4. So, pretty much real fast, what the PS4 can mean for us is if Sony does go ahead with what they've been talking about as far as um, having it more of an entertainment based console instead of just game driven, aiming for the hardcore gamer market, we could see it a lot like the Xboxes, as far as in a entertainment interface goes, which I would welcome with open arms.
Yeah, there is one thing I'm looking forward to and kind of dreading with the PlayStation 4, where the hardware rumors are basically it's got the same CPU as the Xbox, it's got a similar GPU to the Xbox, similar RAM to the Xbox. I'm looking forward to the idea that it means a lot more cross-platform games. Developers will be able to focus on just one hardware for PlayStation 4 and Xbox
Infinity or Durango or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm kind of dreading, for the exact same reason, of less first-party exclusives, because why would they need to?
Right, exactly.
And at that point, it becomes a case of, well, it already kind of is. If you own a PlayStation 3 right now, the only reason you don't own an Xbox is for Halo, Gears of War,
Fable.
Yeah. I played the last few Fable games, so that's a reason not to own the Xbox.
I like the second Fable. The first Fable was too short, but it was a great concept, and I liked how they built onto that with Fable 2. I never played Fable 3 simply because of the bad rumors and the bad negativity it got.
Yeah, Fable. I actually really loved the first Fable game. I think it could have been fleshed out a bit more, but for a first title in an RPG series for a company that doesn't really make RPG type games, it was great.
It was groundbreaking. It really was.
Yeah, Fable 2, built on top of that. But Fable 3 was just absolutely god awful. I completed it within 5 hours, something that should never be done for an RPG.
Especially on today's, I want to say on today's consoles, but the more you look at it, Portal 2 was an awesome game. It took me a couple days to beat Portal 2, and that was playing it 2 or 3 hours at a time, even 4 hours at some days. Portal 2 was a great game. Portal 1, one sit down, beat it. But then, of course, that was just that was kind of like we're going to throw this in here because we made it. We want to see how the reaction is to it. If it's a hit, great, we can build on it. If it's a miss, you got these other games to go with it. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. And surprisingly, it was a much bigger hit than they thought it would be.
Yeah, I loved it. I love everything about Portal. And the second one just built on top of that. The story was more in depth. I'm looking forward to Portal 3 if they come out with one. There's a rumor with Portal 3 in the making, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's also been a rumor of Half-Life 3 in the making for the last since Half-Life 2 got released.
Yeah. And how long was there rumors for Half-Life 2 before it was released? Wow, a long time. But pretty much the only reason why you have AAA exclusives to both consoles is because Sony owns that studio, or Microsoft owns that studio. That's the only reason why. And because Sony could give, all right, we have these libraries that you could use to help you code for the PS3. Here, take it. When it comes to, like you said, if it's all the same, if it's the same sort of hardware and whatnot like that to code for, why is there that much need for first party AAA games?
Yeah,
exclusives.
I mean, I honestly do think, on the one hand, this gives Sony and Microsoft an advantage over Nintendo. When it comes to first, who do we release for first?
Right.
Do we program for Nintendo's RISC architecture, which is going to be more difficult, and their special touchscreen controller? Or do we program for Sony and Xbox?
Right.
Launching to two markets versus launching to one market. The two markets have the advantage.
Right. I got to play around with the Wii U a little bit. Like yesterday, I went up there to GameStop, was looking around, and the controller is just so bulky. It's just a big bulky controller,
Mm.
and it kind of turns me off from it. But the touchscreen and the monitor on the controller is a real plus for me. I look at it, I'm like, man, that looks so cool. I kind of want it so bad. But
I do like the idea of it, but there's just not enough games on there right now for me to shell out for it.
right.
No, right now it's got Zombie U. That's all I'm interested in, which is currently released.
Yeah, I heard Zombie U was a big hit for it. I heard it was one of the selling points for it.
It's the first survival game that's actually had me going, what the, no, don't,
I think
It's-
I think one of the problems that we're going to see with the PS4 is even with the Infinity, the Xbox Infinity or Durango, whatever you want to call it, is the release timing. Yes, the release timing is coming. You know, if it releases like it's rumored to be released, which is holiday season, what are you going to look for as launch titles? You have one of the biggest so far announced games coming out this year so far, Grand Theft Auto 5, which is coming out when May, June, around this summer.
I know, I think I read somewhere that it had been pushed back for unknown reasons, which a lot of people are saying could be, so it's a launch title. I mean, let's see if I can find it. Grand Theft Auto 5. And my internet's going slowly. Huzzah.
Oh. Let's see if I can pull it up real fast.
Yeah, and that's been pushed back to the 17th of September by the look of it. Wait. Yeah, 17th of September at the moment.
So, you know, we're still looking at late summer, early autumn, early fall, but yeah, it was is due for release on September 17th, 2013, and it's still slated for a PS3 and Xbox 360 release. A release for the PC or Wii U is being considered, but it's not been officially announced yet. Which I believe a PC, yes, we will see a PC version, no doubt. Wii U, on the other hand, if Nintendo wants to push for a more riskier product, like they Mad World for the Wii was an awesome game, but it was very, very outside the norm for what you would see on a Wii game or on a Wii console. So I take it how it needs to. Well, blow your nose, why don't you?
Sorry.
So pretty much, what I'm looking forward to is I want to see what we can see out of the PS4 as far as releases go, and software wise. I want to see if they're going to release, if it's going to be backwards compatibility, you know, capable with, you know, original PS1, PS2, and even PS3 games.
See, I can see emulation for PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, but I think it'll be too soon for PS3 emulation.
I see your point, I really do. But I do see, as far as I see a lot of people giving up their PS3s just to buy a PS4, like you do with every system. You know, the system, it is fairly cheap now, dirt cheap almost. But I still see people, you know, I still see people or places like GameStop offering an extra 20% if you trade in your PS3 console for a PS4. I want to see what the price tag is. The rumored is $400 plus for US. I think it's around the $459.
Yeah, it'll more than likely be the same, but in pounds for the UK, which is why I've decided ages ago that since apparently the release is going to be a month or two ahead in the US before we get it in the EU, I am going to be trying to find somebody in America to buy it for me, ship it to me, then I'll pay them extra for it. Because by the end it actually would work out faster and cheaper for me to buy it from somebody in the US, disturbingly.
I mean, I want to see how much it costs before I put down. I want to see everything that has to come with it before I put down that type of money. And one of the things that I have, one of my biggest gripes about when it comes to the hype is if you don't give me enough time to save up for the system, how do you expect me to buy the system on launch?
Yeah.
Especially in today's economy, $500, you can drop $100, $100 to $200 easy in a week on groceries here in the U.S. Why would you want to add an extra? Why do you want to take that, add $300, $300 to $400, and go buy it on a game console?
I mean, I think they're relying on the kid factor here of, PlayStation 4 coming up just before Christmas. Mommy, daddy, I want a PlayStation 4. And,
Right.
Kids have a lot of pressure power. There's a lot of parents who, even if they can't afford it, will still go out and buy stuff for their kids on credit, on small payday loans, just to make the kid happy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be one of those things where it's one of those things where, do I really want to fork out the money? Do I really want to put down on a console that I really know nothing about? Because most places, you're going to have to put down probably 100 to 150 just as the down payment, just to reserve it from like GameStop or somewhere.
Yeah.
Now it's the original rumor was 40,000 yen, which is about $427 US. But it assumed that it would translate to about $400 for the US. Now they're saying that the PS4 will cost over $400. That's kind of, even though it's vague, it's rather obvious. My thing is, right now there hasn't been any indication that there's going to be two different systems to be released. We don't know, which I'm hoping on the 20th we're going to get the info. I'm hoping that come the 20th we'll be able to say, they'll say, all right, we're going to come out with two different models. We're going to come out with the 150 gig and the 300 gig, or 250 gig, 500 gig hard drive. What I want to see, what I really want to see Sony do, even though I highly doubt that they will, is a interchangeable hard drive, like Microsoft has adapted.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you couldn't, that you would, if you wanted a bigger hard drive, you had to buy a new system.
Well, you didn't have to. If you were technical and didn't mind ripping your PlayStation 3 open, you could do it yourself.
Right. But it also avoided your warranty for it.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's kind of a thing like, I think Microsoft, when it comes to game consoles, I think they have the patent for the interchangeable hard drive system, whereas Sony also has a patent for the Blu-ray player being inside the game console. It's one of those things where, are we going to see a trade-off where they're like, all right, we'll allow you to use this concept if you allow us to use this concept?
I mean, the problem is, though, it's much easier for Sony to work around the Microsoft patent, because for hardware patents, they have to be very specific in what they do. All Sony would need to do is have a different functionality for how the hard drive fits in, even the location of where it fits in could be a workaround for patent, whereas using a Blu-ray technology to play video game discs is, it's far broader, it's far more difficult to get around.
Right. But that's something that I want to see, is it going to have the interchangeable hard drives? I think, but I also think that was a brilliant marketing scheme on Sony. I mean, think about how many times someone who bought a PlayStation 3 bought a new one because they wanted to upgrade to the newest hard drive, because they needed more hard drive space.
Yeah, I will admit I have considered that a few times now, because 60 gig is not enough to carry anything.
No, not anymore. I remember when the Xbox when the original 360 first came out, and I got the 20 gig, I got the Pro edition with the 20 gig hard drive, and the chrome plated disc tray, I'm like, man, what am I going to do with 20 gigs? I can't even imagine, how to fill this up. I'm just going to throw I'm going to dump all this music on there. And now I
2 days
have,
later.
yeah, yeah. Now, I can't even think about having just a 20 gig. 20 gig is just for saved games now. You know, um, heck, Final Fantasy 11 on the 360 uses up half of your 20 gig hard drive.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So that's what
It's even worse than the PlayStation 3, where a lot of games you need to install.
Yes, yes, like the WWE 13 game. You had to install the game before you could play it.
I couldn't stand. I can't remember if it was WWE. No, it must have been WWE 12. I tried that on, where you spend, however long it was installing the game, and it still loads slow as hell.
Right, right. Well, all right. Let's go ahead and start wrapping stuff up, I guess, and give our big thoughts out about how everything goes down. So, wow, the announcement and the PS4, PS4. What do you see happening?
Let's see. They're always going to have a massive fanfare. You're going to have some CEO of Sony up there babbling about how amazing Sony is, having been in the games industry for the past several generations. Lots of blah blah blah. If they are announcing the hardware, they're not going to do it straight away. They're going to, they're going to taunt people. They're going to go, here's a new hardware attachment for the PlayStation Vita. Or here's something new we're doing for PlayStation 3 before they go into the PS4 announcement. I mean, for the actual announcement itself, I can see it being more of a hardware, this is what it can do, this is a technical demo of a game. If you want to see more of the PlayStation 4 games, join us at E3.
Do you think we'll see the console any? Or do you think it's too soon?
I have a feeling they may show some elements of console, but I can't see them doing any of the this is how the game plays stuff.
Right.
I think it'll just be a technical demo, explanation of the hardware, and launch details. And they'll be saving all the games and the gameplay for E3.
What I am hoping to see is, I like to see, of course, I agree with you. They're going to come out, you're going to have an executive talk about Sony, talk about PlayStation Move, push the PlayStation Move, push, what is that? What is that new add-on? It actually uses the PlayStation Move, but it's like the Storybook, I think is what it's called.
Oh, that was horrid. So I had to go about Eurogamer as well. That's just terrible.
Well, they released it in the U.S. recently, not too long ago, and I think it got some positive reviews here in the U.S. There's actually a game that's going to be coming out for it that my kids are really looking forward to, and I've thought about getting it for it, but I don't know if I want to drop that amount of money. But we could see something like that. We're going to see something like that. They're going to push for it, and I think in the end they're like, oh, by the way, it's coming.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be it. I think it's going to be. I don't think they're going to give us anything else. I think they're just going to end it with, "It's coming," and we're going to have to take that for what it's worth. And honestly, I think that's a great way to end it. I really do, because it gets. I mean, thinking about it and thinking about a Sony executive up there, and that's how it ends, and it just see the lights dim. I'm playing it in my mind. It gets me really excited, and it really makes me want to tune into E3.
Yeah, I think two things when you say that, at the end, it's coming, the lights dimming. The first is, the rabid PlayStation fanboys online going, it's like, oh, how can they just say it's coming? This is bull, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, you watch far too many WWE segments.
No. I like how, the way that I like it to be is to hook me on.
Do you picture the PS3 executive looking a bit like The Undertaker, perhaps?
No, nothing like that at all. I'm just saying he's out there, he's talking, he's in a suit, and he just says, guys, be ready for it. End of this year is coming. And that's it. Just a really broad statement to end the show on. Now, you don't have to have the lights dim. I mean, he could walk off stage, and you could have the, you know,
I imagining, perhaps JR sat outside the ring. It's like, it's coming. What's coming?
it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. PS4, 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 something like that, But I could see it like, he could say it's coming, and as he's walking off stage, they show the PS4 logo. And it gets, we have something to look on to. But I see exactly where you're coming from, where a lot of people is just going to get pissed off, where it's like, that's all it is. That's, kind of like, since you brought up the WWE reference, I'm going to hit it real fast. Kind of like when Jericho came back last year.
Oh, the ultimate mystery that was revealed. So here's the clue. Somebody's coming back. So it's Jericho. So.
Well, not just that, though, but when he comes back, we knew it was him. Everyone knew it was him. The whole internet knew it was him. But when he came back and he goes to speak, and he doesn't speak at all for like 3 weeks. He just he doesn't say a word at all for 3 weeks. And we're like, really? That's it? That's the big debut? Really? But it was a brilliant move, though, because it kept people coming back for more, hoping that they was going to say something more about it.
Yeah.
So I kind of see it like that, though, and it kind of gets me a little bit excited about it. So I'm excited about what's going to happen. PS4, hopefully, it's going to be released this. A lot of people was hoping that it's going to be released this year. I'm looking forward more towards a next year release, so I can save up the money for it.
I think rumors I saw were Japan and US this year, EU next year.
I could see it. For some odd reason, EU gets shafted on all the releases. Always like months or years later.
I can understand it partially, they got to ship it, translate it to French, German, Italian,
Right.
Spanish, Portuguese, other languages I can't remember. But we're England, we speak English, we speak the same language as America.
Yeah, but y'all spell it differently, though.
We spell it the right way.
Y'all spell it the wrong way. How do you spell color? Spell color.
COLOUR.
Why do you need a U? Why do you need a U in color?
Because we invented the language.
Oh, so that gives you the right to just screw it all up. All right. Y'all invented the language, but we made it better. We'll just put it that way. Now Canada, they screw it up. They make every statement a question.
Yeah, so do Australians.
What are you talking about, eh? Let's go, mate. Anyways, folks, that's our show for this week. Hopefully next week, stay tuned. Hopefully next week we're actually going to talk more about MMOs. The beta just opened up for the sign-ups opened up for the Elder Scrolls MMO.
They've also opened up for Final Fantasy 14.
Exactly.
I've signed up for both. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get into either.
I signed up for both. I have a above average chance of getting picked for the Elder Scrolls Online.
I hate you. Although that could just be a case of where you're in the US.
Right. Or the case that I've played a lot of MMOs also. And that I also used to help run a game site called GameOn.net. All those helped. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about possibly MMOs coming out for future consoles, such as the PS4 and the Xbox Durango / Infinity. Could we see a bigger spawn of MMOs and RPGs? And does MMOs just have to be with RPGs? Do you only have to have an RPG MMO to be successful?
I would love to see an MMO shooter.
Actually, there is one. There is one out there. It's called Dusk 414 or Dusk 514. I have it on the PS3. I've played the closed beta. It is actually pretty cool.
I remember playing that at Eurogamer as well. It was hilarious just because of one of the bugs. If you ran into somebody from behind, they died. That's the best bug ever.
So there you go. So stay tuned and hope to see you then.